All right, so this video is going to be for day 2, week 2. It's going to be week 2, day 2. It's going to be simple contact form. Um, so the first thing we're going to have to do is start our project. So let's go to Get Bash, CD into our project, the folder that we have everything in. In my case, it's my codex folder, and then inside my codex folder, I have a TA folder. So we're going to run the command to create a new React project, which is npm create beat at latest. Okay, it's going to ask us the project name. I'm going to do contact form demo. Then it's going to ask us the framework, which is React. And the variant is going to be JavaScript plus CWC. And then we'll answer no to these next two questions. And then it gives us a list of things we need to do. So the first thing is going to be to CD into this new folder. And then we'll CD into contact form demo. And then we'll enter code dot to open it in VS Code. So that's it for Git Bash. And we are in VS Code. All right, so the first thing we need to do is clean up our CSS files. So we'll click in here, Control A, delete, and we'll do that for the index.css. So we'll click in here, Control A, delete. All right, and so then we'll go to the app.jsx and we're going to clean up this file as well. I delete the first 3 imports and keep the app.css import. We're going to delete this state because we don't need it. And I usually leave these empty brackets and delete everything in between. All right, so we'll probably want Bootstrap to make the form look good. So we'll Google get Bootstrap. And we'll come here to the CDN and we'll copy this. We'll go back to VS Code in our index file and the head. We will paste that and then we'll go get the script as well. Go back to index, paste that, and we're done with this file. So if we go to the instructions, it says, let's see, we need a component name contact form. And we need 2 inputs with a name, message, and a send button. So back to our project. We know we need a component, so we're going to make a component folder. So inside this src folder, we're going to create a new folder called components. And then inside this file, we're going to do a file. And we're going to name this contact form JSX. And so the naming convention for this would be the capital C. We'll start with a capital letter, and then each word will have a capital letter. So we'll start our contact form. All right, so we could do RAFC to start our component. Oh, what happened? And then I'm just going to delete this and just keep a div right there. So let's go back to the instructions to see the next step. All right, add inputs. So we'll go back and do that real quick. So what we could do is do a form. And we'll create our input. So what we could do is have, since we have Bootstrap, we could do a div with the class name of margin bottom 3. And then inside this div, we'll put our label and input for name. So we'll have a label for name. and then an input, and we'll add the stuff for that in, in a second. All right, I'm just gonna copy this for the message input. Oh wait, we don't need that. So we'll do another div with a class name of margin bottom 3. And then in here we'll have our message inputs. So the first one will be the label, which will be for message. So we'll do HTML4 message and then message, same with the name. And then instead of an input, we could do the text area for message. And then we'll put the ID for message. Okay, and then we'll also need a send button. So button, send. And in here we could do a type submit. And then we could do a class name, BTN space BTN dash, I don't know, success, maybe the green color. I think that's how you spell it. Okay. So we have our contact form component with our 2 inputs. Let's see what we need to do next. Okay, it says create 2 states, one for the name and one for the message using use state. All right, so we'll go back to the contact form. We need to import use state to use it. So import curly brackets use state from React. All right, so inside our contact form function, but before the return, we're gonna initialize the state for the name and the message. So the first one's gonna be const straight brackets name comma set name equals use state, and then in parentheses after use state we'll just have empty quotes. Right, we're gonna do the same thing for the message. So const straight brackets message comma set message equals use state, and then in parentheses we'll have the empty quotes. Okay, so that's step 2. Okay, step 3, the onChange event. Attach an onChange function to each input. Use ae.targetValue to update their states as the student types. All right, so we need functions. So we're going to go underneath where we did our states, but before the return, we'll create 2 functions. The first function is going to be function, and then we'll name it on change, on name change, name change. You can name it whatever you want. We need it to know that, okay, so this is what happens when we type in the input. So that's what this function is going to be for. And so we need to set name to e dot target value. And then in the parentheses, like in the parameters of this function, we'll pass E. So it would be E for event. So it's the same as we put event right here. So it's listening for a change, which would be in this case when they type in the input. So we're going to do the same thing for the message. So we'll do function on message change. And then in the parentheses, we'll pass the event, and then we'll have curly brackets, and then we'll do set message, and then in parentheses, we'll do event dot target dot value. Okay, so we have our functions. Let's see, do we have to call the function yet? Oh, it does say attach. So let's go to our inputs and it's attach those on change functions. So we'll go to our input. So there's a few things we're going to need on our inputs. So the first thing would be the value. So we need the value attribute, and then we'll pass name in there. So it knows that the value of this input is going to be this name state. And then after the value, we're going to use the on change attribute. And in the curly brackets, we're going to pass that on name change function. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing for our text area for the message. We'll do the value equals message. And then we'll use the on change attribute, and we'll pass the on message change function. Okay. Let's look at the instructions. Okay. So now we need step 4, create a function, handle submit. And these are the two things we need to add to the function. We need to prevent the page from refreshing with this e.prevent default function. And then we need to also show an alert thanking the person by name and also putting their whatever message that they sent. So we're going to capture their name from the input and their message, and we'll include that in the alert. So we're going to go back to our contact form. Underneath our functions for the on change functions, we're going to add a new function. So function handle submit. Okay. And then in parentheses, we'll pass the event, and then we'll have curly brackets. And then we need to do the event dot prevent default method. So it's event dot prevent default, and then with empty parentheses. All right, so the second thing we need is the alerts. So alert, and then in parentheses, we're going to use the backticks so we can pass the variables in there. So we'll say thank you, and then we'll do this $ curly brackets, and we'll pass the name state variable. Thank you. Let's see. Let's look at the instructions to see exactly what he wants to say. Okay, thank you, and then your message. Instead of a comma, we'll do explanation. Your message, and then $ curly brackets, and we'll pass message in between the curly brackets. Your blank was sent, I think that's what he said. Let's look. Has been sent. Let's change was to has been sent. All right. Make sure inputs are clear. Set after. Okay. Make sure the inputs are cleared. Set back to empty strings after the alert is closed. So the way we could do that is we could just After this alert, we can do set name in parentheses. We can set it back to the initial state. So it would be set name, and then in parentheses, we'll have empty quotes, and then set message in parentheses, empty quotes. So that should clear out the inputs. So now you see this function is grayed out, so we haven't called it yet. So what we'll do is we'll attach an on click to our button. Or do we need to? I don't think, oh, to the form, we can add an on submit. So in the form tag, what we'll do is we'll add an on submit attribute. And then in the curly brackets, we'll pass handle submit. So now, since this button has a type of submit, when they hit this button, it's going to go up to this on submit, and it's going to trigger this handle submit function right here. So now what we need to do is we exported this, so we need to import this into our app.jsx. So we'll go here and we'll import curly brackets contact form, and we'll select that. Then in between these brackets, we'll call our contact form. Since we don't have any props for this, it's just going to look like this right here. How we call our React components with the brackets and then the name of the component, and then it flows the component. So now let's run this to see if we need to fix anything. Right, npm run dev, npm install. Did I not install? Oh, I guess I didn't install because I don't have the node modules. So whenever you get this, if it says something like V does not recognize, that means you probably needs to do npm install. So now we're going to do npm run dev again. Right. Follow link. All right, it kind of looks a little wonky, but let's see. We'll fix the styling for it in a second, but I'm going to see if our form works. So I'm going to right click inspect just in case we have any errors while we do this. So I'm going to write the name and just a message. So when we send, we should get an alert pop up. Thank you, Jennifer. Your message, Hello World, has been sent, and we'll hit OK. And you see everything was cleared out and our alert works. So everything is working, but we do kind of want to clean this up a little bit and make it look good. So we can go into here and we can kind of give like maybe an H1 saying contact us or something. Okay, let's go back and see what we look like. Contact us. We might want to change these into divs and give it a class name of container. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, but we do need to add some Bootstrap class names to our labels and our inputs. Like our button looks good, but we need to make these look a little better. So we'll go to contact form and here. So in our components folder, our contact form, and we'll scroll down to our inputs and we can add class names. Class name, I think it's form control. And then for the label, class name, form dash label. Okay, we could do that for the message. So with the label, we could do class name, form dash label. And the text area, we could do class name, form dash control. Let's see what we got. Okay, that looks a little better. I think that was okay. All right, we could make it a little smaller too. So we could go we in this div, we can do a class name W-50, which would be 50% of the window. And yep, it's a little better. We could give it a border dash 2. Let's see what that did. I think I have to do border dash 3. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, we probably need some padding. So P dash, and then we can do it, we can make it rounded. All right, that looks a little better. All right, and so the final thing, I'm gonna initialize the repo. I'm just gonna use this source control, click initialize repository. We can write in here initial commit, hit commit. Yes, I want to stage all my changes, publish branch. We want to make it public, and we can open it in GitHub. All right. And I will send you the link to this repository as well. But that is it for the contact form. And I'm going to be working on the multi-page because this one's a little more complicated with the browser router and everything to like get it all to work. But I will get that done today as well.